Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Manu Hakim bin Haji Muhammad. Okay, now we will compare the definition of Ar-Rahnu between the exposure draft by Bank Negara Malaysia and the institution that we chose, which is Tekun Nasional. Okay, based on our research, the definition from both Bank Negara Malaysia and Tekun Nasional are similar, but the definition from Tekun Nasional is more specific. Where Bank Negara Malaysia, for example, stated in their exposure draft of Ar-Rahnu, they said that Ar-Rahnu refers to a contract where a party as a pledgor pledge an asset as a collateral to another party, a pledgee to fulfill an obligous liability or obligation owing to the pledgee in the event of default of such obligor. Bank Negara Malaysia use general words to describe the contracting parties such as pledgor, collateral, pledgee, obligor, and obligations because they are the central bank. They are using this exposure draft as a guidelines for all the institutions that offers this product or this facility of Ar-Rahnu because the institution that offer this facility of Ar-Rahnu are not only from banking institution but also from non-banking institution, state-linked company and also cooperative and the foundation such as Yayasan Pembangunan Ekonomi Islam Malaysia or YAPIM. On the other hand, Tekun Nasional stated from their product features on their website as Ar-Rahnu Tekun is a short-term Syariah compliant mortgage financing product or CORD where the client or entrepreneur will pledge gold products or jewelry based on the types of gold accepted as a collateral for the financing granted. As we can see, the definition of Ar-Rahnu from Tekun Nasional are more specific where the client or entrepreneur is the pledgor, Tekun Nasional is the pledgee, gold products or jewelry as the collateral or marhun, and the debt itself as the obligation to receive the financing. In a nutshell, we believe the definition outlined by the Central Bank of Negara Malaysia are the guidelines for any Islamic financial institution or any institution that offer this product or this facility of Ar-Rahnu. That is why the definition from Bank Negara Malaysia is general. Nevertheless, the definition by Tekun Nasional are specifically and clearly stated for the better understanding of the client to use the Ar-Rahnu product offered by Tekun Nasional.
In the exposure draft, there are 11 types of contract that should have to be involved in Ar-Rahnu, which are card, murabahah, tawarruk, bayina, istisna, ijarah, kafala, mudarabah, musyarakah, wad and takaful. In Tekun Nasional, there are only applying 4 types of contracts which are wadiah yadamana, card, ujrah and takaful. The first contract is card contract where BNM defines it as a collateral shall be liquidated to recover payment of the outstanding debt amount arising from the card in accordance with the terms and conditions agreed between the contracting parties. The pledge is not allowed to charge any fee to the pledger to gain profit. In Tekun Nasional, they define card contract as a loan agreement between two parties which are the pledgee and pledger, and the loan payback amount must be equal with the amount borrowed. Tekun Nasional also agrees that they cannot levy any fee to the pledger to make a profit. The second contract is white contract. In the exposure draft, they define white contract as which the pledger agrees to the pledgee to the collateral item to the pledge in the future. In Tekun Nasional, wadiah yadawana is being applied in the Ar-Rahnu. It is a saving contract which the owner of the gold hands it over to the depositor to be kept safe. Tekun Nasional has the authority to pledge the gold if the pledger is unable to repay the debt. Next is ujrah, that is also known as safekeeping fees. In the BNM exposure draft, it did not state specifically ujrah as a contract, but they had applied ujrah as an expenditure in the Rahnu. The expenditures also include the collateral custody, paperwork and liquidation. In Tekun Nasional, the every 100 ringgit in marhum value, the pledgee will be charged 50 sen. Lastly, the takaful in Ar-Rahnu. Every Ar-Rahnu should have takaful protection because the takaful itself is designed to preserve the marhun that is being pledged in Ar-Rahnu. The pledger must pay the takaful in the form of maintenance or safekeeping fees. Tekun Nasional had life and accident insurance policies to protect the collateral items.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Noah Sofia Abdul Sufyan. The contracting parties involved in the exposure draft are a pledger and a pledgee. In a Rahnu contract, the pledger could be the obligor or a third party. A contractual party must be a natural person or a legal body with the legal competence to engage into a Rahnu contract. There are some conditions. The first one is the Islamic financial institution must ensure that the Rahnu contracting parties include at least two parties, which are the Islamic financial institution and a customer or third party. The contracting parties must be explicitly recognized as the pledger or pledgee in accordance with the purpose of Rahnu contract. There are some situations in how to recognize who is pledger, obligor, and pledgee. The first situation if the customer pledge his collateral or the collateral of another party to ensure his obligation to the Islamic financial institution, the pledger and the obligor are the customer, while the pledgee is the Islamic financial institution. Meanwhile, the second situation if the third party guarantees his or another party's collateral to secure the customer's obligation to the Islamic financial institution, the pledger is the third party, the pledgee is the Islamic financial institution, and the obligor is the customer. The conditions in our Tekun Nasional are individuals aged 18 and up, accompanied by a Malaysian citizen or a permanent resident, are contracting parties in Ar-Rahnu Tekun Nasional. Furthermore, the individual must have a valid ID card or other documentation. The requirement in Ar-Rahnu Tekun that the pledger be 18 years old or older is consistent with the requirement in the exposure draft that the contracting party have legal ability to enter into the Rahnu contract. An individual who has reached the age of 18 is deemed to be of legal age.
Okay, next we move to the condition of pledge item, marhum item. In exposure draft, the condition of pledge item that marhum item must be recognized by Sharia. The marhum item must be halal and has a value to everyone, such as gold or silver. Other than that, the pledge item must be in the possession of an obligation or a liability marhubi that arise from the Sharia compliant obligation. So the pledge item must be possessed by obligor or by third party. If the pledge item is wholly or partially owned by the third party, the marhubi must obtain the third party's consent to pledge the item. Next, the possession of the marhum must be in the form of the qab hukmi, constructive possession, and qab hakiki, physical possession. Besides that, the pledged item must be accepted by the contracting parties and Ar-Rahnu. Contract must be determined upfront, made known, and transparent. Okay, next we move to the condition required by Ar-Rahnu Tekun. For the Ar-Rahnu Tekun, the condition of the marhun must be on the gold form only. So the quality goal that is acceptable by the Ar-Rahnu Tekun are from 24 carats to the 18 carats, which is include the gold content from the 99.9% to the 75%. If the gold content is below 75% and gold quality is below 18 carats, the Ar-Rahnu Tekun will not accept the marhun item. So we move to the if are there any receipt or evidence to be presented in ensuring the ownership right of the pledgor to pledge the marhun item from the Ar-Rahnu Tekun is the pledgor needs to possess or bring an identity card or valid document to pledge the item. So any kind of receipt or any evidence can be bring to the Ar-Rahnu Tekun. So if the for the non-resident, they also can place item in the Ar-Rahnu Tekun, but they must bring support document such as a verified passport and not expired yet as a visa or pass. Other than that, um, the pledgor need to give Malaysian address and Malaysian phone number for any contact to the pledgor. That's all.
Okay, now we will compare the safekeeping fees between the guidelines from the exposure draft by BNM Malaysia and the practice by the Tekun Nasional. Safekeeping fees of the Ar-Rahnu stated in the exposure draft by BNM Malaysia are categorized as expenses in Rahnu. As which they said in the exposure draft, all other expenses incurred in the relation of Rahnu contract including safekeeping, documentation and liquidation of the collateral or marhun. As we can see, Bengal Malaysia does not state any exact amount or guidelines of the safekeeping fees to be charged upon the collateral to the customer. The only thing they stated is the acknowledgement of safekeeping fees as one of the expenses that can be charged by the pledgee or Islamic financial institution upon the marhun or collateral that have been pledged by the customer or clients. With that being said, every Islamic financial institution or Islamic pawn shop that offer this facility, which is Ar-Rahnu, to the customer have their own way to calculate the amount of safekeeping fees that can be charged to the customer or client, but with one condition, which is that have been stated in the exposure draft, which is the pledgee shall not charge any fee that amounts to profit in the Rahnu contract. So the purpose of the safekeeping fees is solely to cover all the expenses incurred by the pledgee or Islamic financial institution. On the other hand, Ar-Rahnu Tekun by Tekun Nasional is pretty straightforward in their product disclosure of Ar-Rahnu, which is the storage fee or ujrah for every 100 ringgit of marhun or collateral value. 50 cent will be charged as a safekeeping fee. However, on the official website of Tekun Nasional, the method of calculation of the storage or safekeeping fee is not disclosed by the Tekun Nasional. In conclusion, our research show that the current practice of Tekun Nasional and the outline exposure draft of Rahnu by the Bank Negara Malaysia have no dissimilarity in the requirement of the safekeeping fee. The method of calculation of safekeeping fee varies among the Islamic financial institutions that offer the Ar-Rahnu product, which means different Islamic institutions have different methods of calculating the safekeeping fee, including Tekun Nasional including Tekun Nasional. As long as the pledgee does not make a profit from the fees charged to the customer, and clearly doing so is not permissible.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mio Abdul Razik bin Mio Muhammad Zain, and now we will move on to the final question, which is the comparison for the liquidation of pledge items based on the exposure draft by Bank Negara Malaysia and Tekun Nasional's Ar-Rahnu Tekun. On the surface, Tekun Nasional's terms and conditions regarding the liquidation process is very well aligned with the exposure draft. For example, Sharia-compliant components such as jewelry and gold are examples of marhun, which are pledge items that are used in the agreement. When the time comes to liquidate these items, it follows certain rules. For one, in Tekun Nasional's case, they are aligned with BNM's exposure draft by giving the rights to the owner to delegate the liquidation process to other parties such as his agent. This means that the owner themselves do not need to be physically present when the liquidation of the items are taking place. Moving on from that, in the event that the client fails to satisfy all the obligatory requirements, the company has the right to sell the pledged items. The funds from the sale will be used to deduct the outstanding amount until the loan has been completely settled. And also, should there be any excess money after the debt deduction, the client is entitled to claim the amount. Adding to Tekun Nasional's liquidation process, if the client fails to claim the items by the end, the company will send out a notice as per company's policy. If the client still remains negligent or silent, the items will be up for auction. This means that the client should always be mindful of the expiration dates before coming to an agreement. And finally, in the exposure draft, it is stated that the liquidation process allows the party to liquidate the pledged items either as a whole or partially. This also aligns with Tekun Nasional's practice, but there are some rules. For instance, if the pledgee chooses to segregate their assets to liquidate, they have to negotiate with the company and they have to do it themselves instead of their agent doing the bidding. That is all from us. Thank you.